Well, my story, the story of my life, begins the same year that the famous Dr. Jonas Salk discovers the polio vaccine. He discovered it that year, and then they had to do some more research and development on it, and then that's when they began to distribute it. But my family was in an area there in Texas where there was polio outbreak, and they didn't know it when they went there, but it was quarantined area. And so I went ahead and got polio. And I always have to start my testimony that way because that's the truth. That's the way it was. And I never say anything to make anyone feel sorry for me in any way. I just say it in a lighthearted sense to let you know that my timing has always been crummy. And after a few of my jokes, you'll see tonight that it continues to this day. But so anyway, growing up with polio, I told you, growing up with polio was tough. It was a hard life. But the fortunate thing with it was, I got it when I was just a little 6-month-old baby. So there was really no period of adjustment for me. I have met people that grew up, had a normal life for many years into their teens, into their 20s, and then got hit with polio, and it changed their lives. So the Lord spared me from that. But with polio, you soon realize that you are different than the other people around you, and when you're a little kid, you realize that you're different than the other kids in your neighborhood. And so sometimes, people treat you fine, they treat you good, and you get along fine, but then there's those other people that don't treat you so good. And I had some of those kind of people in my neighborhood. I mean, these kids were rotten. If I ever meet them again, I don't think I'm going to witness to them. Because you know where I want them to go. No, I will witness to them. But these kids, some of these guys were bad. They used to trip me and then make bets to see if I'd fall to the left, to the right, or front or back. These were mean guys. And they'd call me names, and not just, in my neighborhood, we didn't just speak English, we spoke English and Spanish. So, man, I got called bilingual names, So it was a hard life growing up, and I had to adjust to that. But luckily, and I thank the Lord that my parents, were supportive of me. They always sought to build me up, push me ahead, give me a chance whenever there was a chance to do anything. And so I thank the Lord for that. Now, our situation in our home, we were what you would call, and I hope that you're here, you don't take this wrong, we were nominal Catholics. And if you're Catholic, I hope you're not one of those nominal like me. Now, nominal, I think that's a Greek word which means twice. It means we'd go to church twice a year, nominal. And, Christmas and Easter, that was it. And so to just make a story short here, we didn't have much of a spiritual background in our family. We just, played the games a little bit, went to church once in a while, like that little Catholic boy and the Baptist boy, we went to confession once in a while, but not consistently. So I didn't grow up in a Christian family. And so that's the way it was. But my family was so supportive of me that, they did everything they could. Now, one of the things, when you're a Christian family, I pray that the parents, mom and dad, or if there's just a mom or if there's just a dad, that the parent or parents are the heroes for the family. But in my family, we weren't Christian, so we used to look outside of the family for our heroes. And in our neighborhood, we used to call it the barrio. We used to look for Hispanic heroes. Anything that sounded Hispanic, we'd grab onto it. Now, in the mid-'60s, when I was growing up, on TV, radio, the media, the newspapers, magazines, there weren't too many Hispanics out there. The best we could do on TV was that little old mouse on Saturday morning, Speedy Gonzalez, yipa, yipa, rio, rivandele, that stuff. And we said, man, that can't be our hero. We're all going to grow up to be mice or something. So we'd have to kind of stretch our imaginations sometimes. And, like you guys, in the mid-'60s, you turn on your black and white TV. I don't know if kids know about black and whites, but black and white TV. And you guys used to watch I Love Lucy. But not us. In our neighborhood, we'd turn on our black and white TV, and we'd wait for Ricky to start saying, Mujer, ¿qué estás haciendo? ¿Por qué estás así? And we say, hey, he's talking Spanish. We understand what he said. So we used to watch I Love Ricky. That was our show. And on Sunday, we'd open the Sunday comics, and we wouldn't look for Dennis the Menace. We'd look for Dennis Jimenez. Dennis Jimenez was our guy. And, we had to stretch, and whenever we got hungry, we'd go get chicken just like you guys. Kentucky Fried Chicken from Colonel Sanchez, Hispanic, that's what we were. We were wanting to do that. Well, anyway, suddenly onto the scene came a music group that was very popular in the mid-'60s, and they had a distinctively Latin beat, Latin sound, and of course they had a Latin name. The young people won't know, but you guys like me, you'll remember this group. It was Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, right? Tijuana Brass. All right. So those were our heroes. They were Hispanic sounding, and they were on all the music specials. They were on the radio and the newspapers, magazines, and so we used to follow them. And in fact, my parents applied it to me. They said, Lino, when you come of age, when you're in school and you're in the right grade, you need to get into music. So someday maybe you can get into that group, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. So I'd hear this a lot. Get into music, maybe get rich, maybe get famous, you never know. And so I always would hear that. And so finally, when 5th grade rolled around in the town I was living in, Abilene, Texas, they said you can sign up for music. So I signed up for music, and I was all ready to play, that instrument like Herb Alpert. And my parents, they said, well, you're going to play bugle, just like Herb Alpert. So that's all I'd been hearing for years. So I signed up for getting into music, getting into band, and lined up one day. And I was at the end of the line, waiting to sign up for music. But to me, that was nothing different, because I was always at the end of every line, because I was so slow with my crutches and the braces. So, just another line. And so finally, when I got to talk to the music teacher, he asked me what I wanted to play. I said, I want to play bugle. I want to be like Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. I want to get rich and famous someday. And he got excited when he heard that, because, he knew there'd be some enthusiasm for music. And he said, well, that's great, but we only have a problem here that you're going to have to think about. And I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, you were the last one in line. I said, yes, sir, I'm always the last one in line. He said, well, I've already assigned all the instruments except for one. And I had brought some instruments with me, and I've already sold those to some of the kids. I only have one left. And he said, it's not a bugle. And he said, by the way, Herb Alpert plays a trumpet. And I said, well, I don't know. It's what my dad was telling me. But he said, the only instrument I have left is this one. And so he pulled one out, and it looked a lot like this. And he said, this is a flute. And he said, you know what? Looking at your situation with your crutches and all, this would be a good instrument for you. It's lightweight, comes apart, put it in a small case. You can carry it home to practice and then bring it back for band class. And then he knew what part of town we lived in, the barrio. If we combine our income of all the people on our block, we'd still be below the poverty level. And he knew that. And so he said, you tell your parents about this instrument, but also tell them that I'm selling this old flute. It's an old flute, but I've repaired it, and I'm going to sell it for only $30. Now that spoke to me, and all that other stuff sounded good, but when he said $30, I took the message home, and I said, that's what the teacher wanted me to do. But I had a little question before I left that day. I just remember here. I had a question for the guy. I said, well, I've been really hearing about bugle, or trumpet as you call it, for all these years. And I asked the guy, I said, does anybody in Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, does anybody in there play flute? Then he thought a little while, and he scratched his head. He smiled real big, and he lied through his teeth. He said, yes. And I watch all the old Herb Alpert reruns, and there ain't no flutes. No flutes. But anyway, so I started on that old $30 flute, and all of a sudden, my life was changing. It was getting better and better, because I was on something that I was meant to be doing music. And so even after just a few days of being in band class, I was able to, make some little sounds, doodly-doot stuff, and none of the other kids could produce a sound or move their fingers at all. So all of a sudden, the kids, instead of making fun of me or tripping me, making bets which way I was going to fall, they were saying nice things about me. I mean, I could hear them whispering, hey, he's pretty good. How'd he do that? We've only had the instruments a few days. Wow. And I heard that, they were saying good stuff, compliments about me. And I'd never heard anything like that other than at home. And so I said, man, I got to really work hard at this. And so I started practicing a whole bunch. And so it was great. And then I went on into junior high and was winning awards then into high school. In fact, we moved away from Abilene back down to the border, the little border town of Del Rio, Texas. And in Del Rio, I got there and I found out that things weren't quite up to par. And in fact, nothing was very good about the school district that I was attending. And so when I went there, I said, I want to be different than all these people here. I want to do well. Well, I talked to these people, and they said, well, when we go to contests in music, we always do crummy. I mean, we get third place, fourth place, sometimes even fifth division ratings. And, when you get a 5 in a contest of any sort, I mean, that means you should have stayed home, bub, And that's what this school district was used to. But when I got there, I said, I want to change things. So I wanted to work real hard and do well at a we called it a solo contest. And I asked the teacher for the music way ahead of time. I really did, 2-3 months ahead of time, but he never got it for me till 2 days before. And I thought, well, this is hopeless, but I'll give it my best shot. And I worked. Skipped a few classes in high school and practiced in the evening on Friday. Saturday we had to go out of town to this contest. And I got there and I thought I was kind of ready till he said, now we got to find you a piano player to play with. And I go, what? He said, I'll find you one. It's a junior college, so somebody around here must play piano. So anyway, he found a pianist. He said, here, go practice with him and go through it a couple of times and then go play for your judge. I thought, oh my goodness, I want to be just like everybody else. You should have stayed home, bub, sort of a thing. But we worked a little bit, went and played for the judge, and I was expecting the worst because I'd only had that little piece of music 2 days and then, one rehearsal with a pianist. And so we played, and then I had to wait till the end of the day for them to post the results. But I'd been working hard the previous years, so I thought, well, maybe something, maybe not a 5, maybe a 4. Well, we waited till the end of the day. They posted the things on a bulletin board, all the ratings, your name, and then what you got. And we were all looking over there. All my friends were saying, hey, man, I got a 4 this year. Man, I got a 3. Nobody got 2s or 1s. Some of the kids were saying, we should have stayed home, bub. But anyway, we finally found my name, and I looked over, and there was a 1. And I thought to myself, man, that must have been some piano player. I couldn't believe it. You know what? The kids couldn't believe it. My band director couldn't believe it. There's just an electricity. And, from that day, my whole life changed. And I was instantly a celebrity in our schools. They announced it on the intercom. Lino Lopez has won the first place in the history of our school district. And we want to congratulate him. And we're going to let school out 15 minutes early today. I heard this big yell, yay, through the whole school. They just wanted to get out of class. But from then, I just looked dumb. I'm really smart. So I took advantage of all this notoriety, started running for all these club officer jobs, and student government job things. And I could look you right in the eye, and I could tell you I never lost an election in high school. I mean, I tell people I was president of the English club. I was president of the French club. I was president of the Spanish club. I invented clubs so I could be president of them, It was just everything. Student council president, outstanding teenagers of America. And then I kept winning all these music awards. I had medals. I had patches. I looked like a walking billboard. And I used to jingle when I walked. It was wonderful. Everybody knew who I was. And life was great. I practiced hard enough, to make the Texas All-State Band. I never took lessons. I just did it out of sheer determination. So then with all of that came college scholarship offers, universities wanting me to come. And so when I went to college, they giggled at me a little bit for the way I played because I was doing everything incorrectly. I mean, I was playing well, but not doing it correctly. So they said, you've got to start all over. And I was going, what do you mean? I'm this, that, and the other. And they said, no, you've got to play correctly. So anyway, not only that, but I had to get me to a certain level in my instrument. So I had to sell my old instrument, save some money, and buy another one, and upgrade. And I did that several times till I ended up playing a $3,000 professional flute in college. Now, if it had been a car, it would have been a Cadillac. AM/FM stereo, tinted windows, everything. It was a wonderful instrument. And it was at this time where I tell people that I made the biggest mistake of my young life. And I'm going to use church terms so you'll kind of get it here. When I got that instrument, I asked music to come into my heart. I gave my life over to a God with a little g, you understand, an idol. I asked this to take my life and make it whatever it could. Now, I gave it everything I had. And by that I mean I was practicing anywhere from 10 to 12 hours every day. I mean, I was working at it. I was determined to do well. And so my professors all saw, how hard I was working and how I was improving. And so they always would encourage me. And in fact, I was outstanding musician every semester in college, dean's list and stuff like that. But the thing that really kind of got me turned the wrong way was when one of my professors, in fact, my flute professor was saying, she told me that I needed to enter some competitions, some collegiate competitions. And so I did, followed her advice and went around the country to different competitions that would last a week. And at the end of the week, they would announce the winner. And it was always me. So she said, let's go to international competitions and see how you do there. And so, people from all over the world would come to the U.S. and we'd meet at different areas of the country to compete. And even at the end of those contests, at the end of the week, they'd announce the winner. And it was me. So finally, after I was through with college, I got invited to go to New York to study with a gentleman in the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. In fact, he was the professor there at Juilliard Conservatory of Music, asking me to come study with him. And I thought, man, I've really made it now. I've worked hard and I've used the talent that I have. And I've been playing a lot, and I've worked hard and I'm getting everything I deserve here. And you know what? In just a couple of weeks, I was going to get what I deserved. Because when we decided, my wife and I, we got married in college, and the time we decided to move to New York, I got what I deserved, which was not much, because we fell flat on our faces there. And it was a tough time. See, I'd grown up in a little town, went to college in a little town, and then the next step was New York. And that's not the way to do it, guys. Let me just warn you kids, you got to take it step by step. And we took too big of a step there, so we really bombed when we went to New York. And so we were just almost completely broke, almost out of money. And we talked to each other and we said, we better get back to Texas. We barely got enough money for gasoline to get back. So we got back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area where my in-laws lived, and we said, we're moving in for a while because we don't have any money. But all of a sudden we realized that we'd borrowed some money from some friends. They found out we were back, and they wanted their money that we'd borrowed. And then some of our credit cards that we used along the way, the bills started coming. It's funny how they find you wherever you are. But the bills were there, and we were saying, oh no, what do? We got all these bills, all these friends we owe money to. And so we totaled it all up. And it came out to this massive amount. And we didn't have any money. What are we going to do? I said, well, I've got that $3,000 professional flute. And we owe about $3,000. So what we did is 2 weeks later, we sold it. Paid off the bills. Paid off our friends. Sold the God, little g, that I was serving. Sold the idol of my life. And all of a sudden there was no music with Lino Lopez. And I looked inside myself, asked myself some questions, of course. How could this happen? I've worked so hard, sort of questions. But when I looked at me, without music, without the applause, without the recitals, without the big concerts, concert audiences, when it was just me looking at me, I wasn't much different than that little old crippled boy that was in Texas with polio, that got made fun of, got called names, got tripped. You know, because when it was just me without that music, that's who I was, this little old crippled Mexican boy. And so it was about this time that I needed help. I mean, I was depressed, I was angry, I was miserable. Oh, and of course I was married, so I was going to make sure that my wife was depressed, miserable, and angry too. And so the conflicts started. But it was about this time that God, I guess, was preparing me, because He'd let me go down my own path, and He was about to change that. Well, I'm going to be quick here. I got tricked into going to a Baptist church, First Baptist Church of Euless, Texas. I got tricked. Anyway, I can tell you about the trick some other time. But brother-in-law said, we'll go to church real quick, then we'll go see the Cowboys, all right? He picked me up. So we get to church. I say, man, let's go to Mass and let's go home, watch those Cowboys. He said, no. First we got to go to class. I said, go to what? This is church, isn't it? He said, yeah. I said, well, let's go to Mass and let's go watch the Cowboys. And he said, no, man, we're going to Sunday school first. Got to go to Bible study. I said, Bible, what? And he said, we're here. You're with me. We're going. I said, I guess you're right. So we went into this room full of people I didn't know. I didn't recognize any of them from my concerts or my recitals. But you know what? They were treating me real nice, real good. They're shaking my hand, telling me, thanks for coming. You're welcome here anytime. I'm going, whoa, something's wrong with these folks. They must have had a good night last Saturday night or something. Something fishy going on here. And I didn't know what was going on. So I'm suspicious. And so we're in this big room, you know, all the men and women together, husbands and wives. All of a sudden they say, okay, let's break up into our groups. Men, you guys go over here. Ladies, you go over here. I'm suspicious. I said, man, I saw a movie about this kind of stuff. I'm getting out of here. And they said, no, come on, you're with us. So we went into this room. I'm suspicious. I know something fishy is going on. And we walk in the room, and I said, aha, I have it figured out. They've got the chairs arranged in a circle. So this is an Amway meeting. And they're so friendly. And I'm just waiting for the sales pitch. You know, I'm going to walk home with a box of soap or something, because I've been to some of these meetings. And nothing, no pitch, no sales pitch, no, you know, pull out the money so you can go. And then they say, okay, guys, you know, we're sitting in this circle, and they say, here's Lino, he's our visitor, he's our guest. We hope he comes back. I'm going, who are these people? Why are they treating me this way? And finally, one man stands up. He says, okay, guys, let's get started. So I figured he's the leader. He's the teacher. And he says, okay, guys, today let's look at John. I'm thinking, man, these people are rude. Why do they want to look at this guy John for? So I said to my brother-in-law, I asked him, which one's John? What did he do, and why are we going to look at him? And my brother-in-law says, shh, that's a book in the Bible. I said, well, I don't have a Bible. I've never had a Bible. And he says, well, here, take mine. Look for the book of John. You'll find it. You'll see it in there. It says it at the top of the page. He says, look through my Bible. And I hadn't had a Bible. This is my first Bible to look at, my brother-in-law's Bible. I'm flicking through. He says, just look through it. You'll find it. This section says John on top. St. John. And I'm looking. I've never seen a Bible. I thought, man, look, they discovered some new planets. Deuteronomy, Leviticus. Man, great. I'm looking, I don't know where this is, but I see this one section that catches my eye. See, I'm back from New York, and I'm broke, no money, looking for work. And here's this book, and it says job. I say, man, pages and pages of jobs. Whoa. I said, Keith, does this book tell you how to get a job? This is great. He says, shh. That's not job, that's Job. I said, no, it's not J-O-B. I went to college, it's job. That was my first time at church. But there was an attractiveness there, a friendliness, a warmth, a love I didn't understand. And, looking back now, it was the love of God being exhibited. And they didn't laugh like you guys did at me, because I didn't know anything about the Bible. They helped me through. And then, from that little old room with the circle chairs, we went over to the Mass, and I was waiting for the guy in the robes to come out, this guy in a suit. I said, wow. And so, my ears perked up like Ross Perot, and and I started listening and heard about a different God, not this guy, that guy. A God I had not heard of. Nobody had ever told me. I was 24. And finally somebody had the guts to invite me to come to listen to this message from this book. Now this is a Bible from this book. Yeah. And the message was that God, or like the song said that I just played a while ago, I hope you know it. In the chorus it says that Jesus Christ chose to walk that road out of his love for you and his love for me. And the road is called the Via Dolorosa, which is the way of suffering. He didn't have to go. He chose to go. And that he loved me, this 24-year-old that had never heard of that love, that he died for my sin, for all my shortcomings, for all that anger inside, for all that depression inside, for all that bad attitude. Feeling like that little poor crippled old Mexican boy. And now this new message of a love and a hope, just like we heard this morning in the message. And so May of 1980, a few months after coming back to that place, and I didn't know what was attracting me, but I kept coming back. Got me a Bible and started learning how to pronounce some of these names. But anyway, May of 1980, I came down to the front. Even though I didn't know all that I was doing, I didn't know all that it meant, I knew that there had to be a change in my life. A change that I couldn't do, a change that somebody else had to do. And from all I had heard at that church, just like you hear at your church here, that Jesus Christ was the vehicle to make that change in my life. So from then, May 1980, my life changed completely. And so started studying the Word of God. Oh, my wife got saved at the same time. I don't want to leave that out. And a couple of weeks passed, and I got the nerve to call back home to my Catholic mama. She was going to be mad because I went to a Baptist church. Oh, man, she was going to be mad. But you know what? When I was trying to tell her, I was kind of excited, trying to tell her what had happened to my life. She was trying to tell me what had happened to her life, too, around that same time, 500 miles away. And she and my whole family had gotten saved also. It's a big God, a big God. Anyway, so now there's a hope, there's a life to come. There's a victory in this life now. It's a wonderful thing. Well, Robert Wagner came along there as music minister, started the church orchestra. I got in it playing on an old beat-up flute somebody loaned me there at our church. And I knew flutes, Bo knows baseball. Well, Lino knew flutes. I'd been playing on that Cadillac flute for a while, and I looked at this old borrowed thing I had, and it was not a Cadillac. It was a Yugo. And it was about a $30 flute, but I was playing. I was playing at church. I was playing for God. I was playing for Him to get the applause, not for me to get the applause. It was a whole new attitude, serving Him in life, and that's the message to you. You can do what you do it successfully, but keep Him at the forefront. Serve Him in every way. Whatever you do it with your whole heart. Anyway, so I kept on playing and playing that old beat-up flute, and people kept hearing, there was a little bit more talent than just a old flute player there at church. And so God worked it out. God worked it out. I can tell you a whole story about it, but God worked out me getting this flute. I can't afford this flute, but God can. This is a $6,000 professional flute that the Lord provided, and it's His, and everything I play is for Him. You guys are just kind of spectators here. I'm playing for Him, but it's a wonderful thing to serve Him and to know that He is able to save all of us. My scripture that I love to quote is, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for the ungodly. And that is the message. And we're going to have just a small time of invitation here. But if you're out there and you're going your way, you know, you're good at it, seems good, seems like everything's good, but if God's not at the forefront, I'm afraid that you may have to get to that point of, like in my life, it's just a tragedy and just a total falling off. And why not give everything that you've got, all your energies, to the Lord Jesus Christ, to God, who is able to save. And He'll put you right back on that path that you love so much. And He will strengthen you and let you go in that pathway, the same pathway I was going, but now with more victory and more promise and more hope. And He can do that for you also.